Do I see any heads? Okay. Well then, it's 7:03 p.m. and I am going to call the September 9th meeting of ANC 1A to order. So first things on our agenda is, pardon? I was going to say, I presume that the agenda that's online is aligned with the most recent version. I hope so. That's the one I printed off. Is community announcements. So I will ask if there's anyone who has anything they'd like to share. First, we'll start with commissioners. Then we'll move to attendees. If you're an attendee, if you could raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, I believe it's hit *9. We will know that you have something to share and we can put you in queue. So we'll start with commissioners. Who would like to start?
I'll start, Commissioner Edmondson. I have nothing to announce. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bonneau?
Unmute myself before talking. Got the Zoom down. Hi, great to see everybody. Just wanted to share that we continue to do monthly cleanups in 1A01 and would welcome any volunteers for a masks on, socially distanced cleanup on Saturday, September 26th at 11 a.m., meeting at the Spring Perry Triangle. And I'm happy to make sure that's reflected in the minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other announcements from commissioners?
I'll go, but I'll go last.
Okay.
I don't know if this is relevant right now, but I did talk with the people at Project Give Back, and they are planning to go forward with the annual program. However, it's going to be considerably different, of course. But they have been working with La Clinica and the Columbia Heights Youth Center and Latina Center, and they're all going to be putting up tents and outdoor spaces for the annual food drive and distribution. So I'll have more information on that. But I'm just putting a call out to any commissioners who want to assist us in the planning of this event, because again, it's going to be totally different. They're going to try to have satellite locations around the city to prevent bunching of people, and so that the whole, so that our populations will continue to be served. So I'll have more information. We're not going to do a presentation, of course, tonight, because we wait until October to do that for funding purposes.
Thanks, Dotti. I will say, if you could keep us posted, I think the two questions we probably have are, one, if it's something that we can fund directly to save some of the issues around grants we've had, particularly in light of this. Yeah, go ahead. Actually,
there is. One of the things that they said that they actually need are tents, because, of course, they're going to have to have some place for warmth, and then develop inclement weather. Now, I know we had talked about purchasing tents for ourselves. If we did that, we could lend them to them. If not, this would be a great opportunity for us to purchase and lend.
Yeah, thanks. Let's talk to Christine, and perhaps we want to set up a special conversation just primarily among commissioners to talk about what grants should look like in the coming year, so that one makes it easier for us, and we don't. And Christine, if you want to chime in on that.
Yeah, sorry. So I have to say, and I'm giving everyone forewarning, so I didn't hear a word that was said other than a couple mumbles about the grant. So I do know that the topic was the Project Give Back, but after that it was all garbly-goo. But I did want to, so we are passing the FY21, or I have the FY21 budget on the agenda for tonight. It's on the I think it's on the consent. I'm sorry, Zach, maybe you can.
It's on official business. So we can
Oh, okay. But I did set aside 3,000 because that's what we've been giving every year for specifically
Right.
for Project Give Back. But I also, you know, and dumped everything else pretty much into other, because I know we've really been trying to spend out our funds for, you know, myriad of reasons and in support of the community. So, yeah, so when we get to the budget, I just want to let you know that that has been in there for Project Give Back, with Project Give Back in mind, of course.
Okay, thank you.
In case I don't hear any more of this meeting.
Okay.
Go ahead. Is there anyone else before Michael? Michael, you said you want, or Commissioner Ray, you said you wanted to go last. Is there anyone else with something to share?
Yes,
I do, and I was going to wait until our committee report outs, but again, like my internet is just not helping me. I do want to let folks know we've really struggled with the Powell 16th Street Park the last several months. Zach and I were there today. I've been filing reports with DGS. I spoke with Allie and David Meny, or in Councilwoman Nadeau's office. I wanted to let folks know that we had a renovation scheduled in June. Because of COVID, permitting was delayed. They were able to do the tennis courts and the basketball courts. So those have actually been completely refinished, which, because they didn't require the permits, they look great. I see people playing tennis out there all the time. But we have a lot of issues surrounding that space. I'm waiting for a follow-up on when we will get that project started. And Allie, maybe you can speak a little bit more to this if you'd like in your report, but I do know that, or what we've been told, is DGS has been delayed because of weather and they're backed up, but we do have a lot of reports filed to get that space maintained, but it's not. So I do want to have it on the agenda, Michael, or Commissioner Ray, for the next zoning, parks, public places meeting.
Well, that's next Tuesday, if that works with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's virtual.
Okay.
As long as I don't have to be there in person.
All right. Was there another commissioner I thought I heard had an announcement?
Yes.
Commissioner Clock.
Thank you. Yes, I will say I have seen census workers knocking on doors, so please make sure to encourage your neighbors to fill out the census so we can get the funding we need for our area. Thank you.
Commissioner Robarczyk, did I see that you had an announcement?
I know one thing. I had someone reach out via social media to us about Commissioner Bundy's vacancy. And I just want to make it clear that there is not a special election happening because of the proximity to the upcoming election and because it's the end of the term. So if there's any community members within her SMD that have an issue, have a question, please reach out. Feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to Commissioner Bass or any of the executive team members in case you have any issues.
Thank you, Commissioner Robarczyk. Any other commissioners?
Yeah, I think this kind of falls under the write-in group for her seat.
There is a candidate on the ballot for her seat in the election.
Okay, then that takes care of that.
This was I think this was a question of what do we do between now and the election, but like the beginning of every term and the end of every term, there are no special elections in a normal year, and then COVID has made it even harder. So,
right, and we only have 2 more meetings for the year and for the term.
Yeah. But we've had vacancies in the past, and what I would say is what the guidance Commissioner Robarczyk has given is absolutely correct. Anyone can reach out to any commissioner, particularly members of the executive, with issues, and we will put in the work we need to do for representation and to solve problems. Don't feel that you're without representation. We work collectively. I will put in one small announcement, which maybe could be for a larger discussion at another time or meeting. As some may know, I was appointed to the Police Reform Commission. What I will say is we've had one regularly scheduled meeting, one emergency meeting. We have not formed our committee or our committees yet. There's a RFP out for staff to help us with gathering data and drafting reports and doing research. So we're still at the very beginning of the process, but what I would like to say to everybody, like commissioners and members of the community, I'm very much in listening mode right now. So if anyone wants to have a conversation about the Police Reform Commission, public safety, any of that, I am happy to have those conversations and listen to all of the points of view, because I think that's part of the process of drilling down and digging into the core issues to try to make intelligent decisions. So from my perspective, I don't want this to be just what's being fed to the commission. I would like to be very accessible to community members as well. So I'll just put that out there. Any other members of the commission, any other commissioners with news? If not, we're going to you, Commissioner Ray.
Okay, appreciate that. So I wanted to give an update at our last scheduled meeting. We had discussed with the Park Morton Resident Council and had committed to having a meeting one-on-one with her. And I was joined by Commissioner Space and Commissioner Love-Wade and Commissioner Brown. And we reviewed the Park Morton Equity Plan and came up with a list of some areas where we think the ANC can be helpful, and then also some areas where we had some questions. And just so people are aware, some of the areas that we found that we think we might be able to be helpful was some eviction notices that had gone out that probably, well, absolutely should not have. And thankfully, the council member's office was very helpful in trying to address those. The right to return has always been a part of the plan, but we do want to push with the steering committee the idea that as people are leaving the site, how are we keeping them engaged? You know, how can we bring them back for events and let them know what's going on? So that was another area. There is a concern about safety. For example, as people are leaving a building, you have fewer people in a building. And so we did bring up with the steering committee the issue of coming up with a safety plan and how they would address that. Human capital programs, and again, making sure that those human capital programs are applied to people who have left the site. Home ownership opportunities, those are part of the Park Morton site. And as part of the next steering committee meeting in November, we should get a better update on how they plan exactly to do that, because you know, there's a concern that once someone leaves that they may not get into the self-sufficiency programs, and that's a big part of getting money for the down payments and getting into the program to buy a home of their own. And since we have the opportunities here, we need to understand how that's going to work. And then finally, and this is really big, I cannot stress this enough, there is an effort, certainly at the council members level, that we can try to expand the program to include a cooperative. Now, it would likely have to be off the footprint, so somewhere in the general vicinity in the neighborhood, but not necessarily right there at the Park Morton. And so we really want to make that. I want to make that a centerpiece of what we're trying to accomplish, but it's very early and we would need to do that. So there was a steering committee meeting then where they gave us some additional information. They went point by point through the Park Morton Equity Plan with some of their comments about how it aligns with the existing plan and where there are some red flags. I did happen to notice that we also just got an email only 35, 40 minutes ago from, I'll just say from a community member with another point by point. So at this point, we have a lot of new information that I know most of you on this call have not had a chance to look at. I haven't even had a chance to open the email that we got 45 minutes ago. So despite the fact that there is a request that we try to have some kind of a vote tonight, I don't think we're there. And the one thing that I do want to put out is I would like to try to put together a meeting, if the other commissioners want to do this, where we can go through with some representatives from the development, as well as representatives of the Park Morton Resident Council, and just make sure that all of you understand it in ways that maybe those of us on the steering committee do. So that's my pitch for the night, and I'll leave it at that for now. Maybe we'll have some questions later.
Okay. Commissioner Brown, I know you're, oh, there you are. Good. Good. I was checking to make sure you'd made it. Since you just joined us, did you have any community announcements?
Thank you for meeting me. And thanks to everyone who could make it out today to the meeting. I would just like to, if Ali Bobek and Cynthia are on the line, I would just like to thank the ANC 1A Moker's office, as well as Council Member Nato's office. We last week held, last week, I held a walkthrough with the Moker's office, particularly focusing on the 400 block of Kenyon and Irving Street in the alley. We know that there's been some trash issues, mainly with collection throughout my SMD, but primarily on that particular block, and some dumping issues. So I look forward to working with the Department of Public Works, as well as the Mayor's office, to try to mitigate some of those issues. We did troubleshoot a lot and have a good list going to address those issues. Also to Councilmember Nato's office and the Department of Transportation. I did a walkthrough today of some areas throughout my SMD, particularly where certain areas have increased speed. So we'll be including some, posting up some signage, or at least some kind of minor traffic calming measures around Wangari Gardens, and moving up towards the 400 block of Columbia Road, where that tends to be a bottleneck, but people tend to speed along that intersection as well. So no other community announcements, but just would like to thank our city partners for really trying to troubleshoot some of those issues within my single member district.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. We can now move to announcements from community members. I see we have two that have raised their hands. If you'd like to get in queue, either if you're on the Zoom call and you can raise your hand to let us know, that would be great. If you've called in, *9 should let us know. So Dom, if you could, I see the first two was Scotty and then Bob.
Hey there. My name is Scott, or Scotty. I live in Ward 1 on Park Road and Park Place. And I am a neighbor to the residents of Park Morton. I've actually spoken with Commissioner Ray about our work with Park Morton. A bunch of, so basically when the pandemic started, a big group of us in the neighborhood created a pod, and we've been doing a lot of mutual aid work and support for the community, everything from providing food to helping neighbors with household things, getting tutoring services, all sorts of stuff. And one big thing we've been involved with is connecting with the folks at Park Morton to support them. And so I just wanted to come tonight to speak about that. I'm not sure if Ms. High is on the line right now, but we've been working a lot with her. And, you know, we've become really good friends, and just wanted to speak up as a neighbor who lives a block away from Park Morton. And, you know, I have lived in this house for 3 years in this neighborhood and gotten to know a lot of people. I'm not from DC, but I think that what I want to really emphasize is, although I'm not from the neighborhood, although I'm not from the city, I really care about the people that I live around, and I really care about our neighborhood not being a source of displacement for longtime Black residents in this city and in this neighborhood. And so I think that I just want to say that I stand strongly with the Park Morton residents and their demands and their equity plan. And I think that it's really important to keep in mind that there are a lot of neighbors who have been organizing around this who also do. And so, yeah, and I think the other thing that we've been hearing a lot of as we've learned a lot about this work is that there are different barriers to some of the demands in the plan, and I think it's important to explore those, but that ultimately, like, this plan is an aspirational document. It's a vision for like what this neighborhood could be for our residents. And so I think it's really important as the ANC commissioners talk about this plan and thinking about supporting it, that we don't get so caught up in the details of what's possible and what's not based on the specific demands that they have, but that we actually think about what are the principles that are underlying these demands that are really about protecting our residents, especially our longtime Black residents, and creating a sense of racial equity in a community that is rapidly changing and preventing displacement in this community. So I just really want to encourage the commissioners to think about that, and just let you know that there are 40 of us in our pod, and we all support the plan. We've gotten 17 different groups, organizations throughout the city, including Bread for the City, DC, DSA, Ward 1 Mutual Aid, some different like Black-led organizations in the city as well, Empower DC. So we're really getting a lot of people mobilized behind this, and I'm really excited to continue to work with y'all to hopefully make this happen for the residents of Park Morton. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. Dom, can we go to, I think Bob was next, and then I'll let you, I see a number of people have raised their hands, so I'll let you work through that. And I also see there's one notice in the Q&A.
Great, you guys can hear me?
Yep, we certainly can, Bob.
Yeah, hey, this is Bob Schlehuber. I live at 1120 Lamont Street. Nice to be with all of you and to see your faces. I want to echo what Scott's saying. You all are elected officials within a government that's failing the people of this city. Commissioner Barczyk, I owe a follow-up email to, but just last few weeks ago, we held a meeting with the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And even the people that are tasked with keeping our community safe and doing violence interruption programs are failing. I mean, it was a sham of a meeting. It was a new staffer that had never met with us. We've been all working on this, at least I have, for 3-4 years now, and we can get zero consistency to frontline people that are trying to stop the shootings in our neighborhoods. And the organizations that are funded by the government, that the government's relying on, that they're giving money to, are not showing up for us. And on top of it, people are being displaced through Park Morton. I mean, it's a farce, and all of you are held accountable. You guys are not directly connected to the executive office, which I think is the main driver of this work, but as elected officials, this falls on you, and I hope that you are as outraged by other government agencies that are failing the community, to displace people in the middle of a pandemic, to not be out on the streets when we have uptick in homicide, 128 murders in our city, and we can't get people that are paid to be on the streets to prevent violence to be there. So I just want to echo what Scott's saying and make sure that the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, Collaborative Solutions for Communities, and the Department of Housing are held accountable to the people of this city and to our ANC. I also just want to put a quick plug. Will Merrifield is running for City Council. District Council. It's somebody that actually will hold and has held developers accountable. We need people like him that will fight. I've spent a lot of time pushing his campaign, and I hope others will look into Will Merrifield, the former lawyer at the Washington Clinic for the Homeless, because we need new people in leadership. It's clearly not working as is. So thank you so much for all your time. Really greatly appreciate being here this evening.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, it looks like we have Sylvia Garrick next, that she needs to be unmuted.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi, Sylvia, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Chairman Boss, commissioners, and community members. Greetings on behalf of the People's Council, Sandra Matthews, Fran staff, your consumer advocate. As you know, I'm Silvia Garrick, consumer outreach specialist, Hispanic coordinator for the DC Office of the People's Council. I just want to extend a gentle reminder to all of PEPCO multi-year rate increase virtual hearing before the DC Public Service Commission to be held on September the 29th at 2 p.m. Individuals wishing to testify can email their requests to psc-commission-secretary@dc.gov. Or if you wish to send it in writing, it's the same email address, which is psc-commission-secretary@dc.gov, and copy to your consumer advocate, which is DC Office of the People's Council at info@opc-dc.gov. And I just want to bring to the attention of everyone that OPC does not agree, dismisses PEPCO's rate increase request. Should you have any questions or concern, I'm here. I'll be able to answer any disturbing issues or questions that you might have pertaining this PEPCO rate case.
Thank you, Sylvia. Just quickly, does anyone have a question for Sylvia? Otherwise, I think we know how to get in touch with you, and I would encourage people to connect with you following the meeting if there aren't any questions now.
Wonderful, and you can call the office at 202-727-3071, once more 202-727-3071, or email us with any concerns or questions that you would have before you decide to testify at info@opc-dc.gov. Thank you so much, Commissioners.
Thank you so much. Looks like Steve Dryden is next. And he needs to be unmuted.
We can actually only let people speak. People have to unmute themselves if they want to.
Oh, okay. Mr. Dryden, if you can unmute yourself, we'd love to hear from you. Okay, well, why don't we move on and come back to Mr. Dryden when perhaps he's unmuted, and we could go next to Ms. High.
I'm going to try to unmute her here. Let's just, no. Ms. High, there you go.
She's on now.
There you go.
Hello. Good evening, everybody.
Ms. High, you're a little soft. If there's a way, I don't know if you're far from your computer.
1 second, because I'm logged in from my computer and my phone, and I need to turn the volume down so the echo will. There. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing me a moment to speak at the ANC Commissioner meeting. I am coming forth to you all again to ask, despite Mr. Ray saying that the ANC is not prepared to vote tonight, I am still requesting that you vote to make Park Morton Equity Plan a resolution so that we can move Park Morton forward in our redevelopment the way it was meant to be. The plan is not meant to be broken into pieces. And like my supporters have expressed to you, we have a lot of backing, including on our change.org. We have over 200 signatures backing this Park Morton Equity Plan. So it would be benefit to us and to the ANC to assist us in moving this Park Morton equity plan forward the way it's meant to be. So I do request respectfully that you vote on it, and if you care not to, please give me a clear and concise reason why. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. High. Moving on to Chris Otten. Good evening, Chris. It looks like you need to unmute yourself. You're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
It's a little muddled.
Is it a little muddled?
It's a little muddled.
Hold on, is that better?
Maybe if
Is that a little, is that, okay, is that a little better?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening, ANC1C. My name is Chris Otten. I am a former ANC commissioner out of Adams Morgan. I want to give a shout out to Commissioner Dotti Love Wade. Back in the day, we worked together on the Mount Pleasant Library Project. Hope you're doing well. And to Commissioner Edmondson, who is doing a great job with her co-op on Newton Street. You know, as a former ANC, you know, I know they are advisory in as far as they are aspirational in their resolutions, because as we all know, the executive and independent agencies don't necessarily have to follow the guidance of the ANC, even though it's expressed. And I believe one of the residents earlier named Scott, he said that, you know, the Park Morton equity plan, which I'm here to support because I appreciate Park Morton neighbors and residents and families. They're our neighbors. That's an aspirational document. So right in line with what the ANCs are supposed to be presenting in support of the neighbors. We know that not necessarily everything is going to work out in anything that's submitted by the ANCs to the executive. But what we also know is the executive has produced reports like DEMPED, the Quadell report in 2014, shows that projects under new communities, and Hope First before that, have like a 5% or less return rate of our neighbors and residents who live in our communities now. 5% or less return rate. So this is in part why folks who are taking a voucher now are putting themselves in a probably not going to return scenario, because they're out of the system. DCHA has no duty to bring them back. This is why the Park Morton Equity Plan and Park Morton residents want this in writing. And it's, yes, aspirational, because DEMPED and DCHA doesn't have to listen to them or even the ANC, but it's something that right now, just like the DCHA plan, is not fulfilling. Its implementation, as the track record shows, is not there. So we want to join with many other groups, and I'm asking a very simple question for ANC 1A tonight, to join with many other groups and residents to simply endorse what Park Morton residents have taken the time, as threatened Black Ward 1 families have done, to set forth as aspirations for their future, for their collective self-determination. And we hope DEMPED will adopt these aspirations, and that's all we can do, and we know that's all the ANC can do, because, you know, they don't have to follow the guidance of the ANC. But what we know the ANC will do if they endorse this plan is help open up doors for more discussion around it. Certainly, if you're all going to wait to vote on the Park Morton Equity Plan, then you should all be voting to wait, not to close streets down and alleys down where people live right now to move a project forward that's just going to exacerbate folks' displacement. Because it is on high alert right now of displacement. People are being displaced by the tens of families, if not close to 100 families. There's another bunch that are being threatened right now. They're being vouchered out, and what we learned from Barry Farms is when you're vouchered out, you're thrown to the wind. There's not a lot of tracking happening. So all we're saying is, ANC 1A, just take a moment, think about your aspirational role here, this aspirational document, and endorse it like 17 other groups have. And to ensure people like Sean High and other residents at Park Morton at least have a conversation that's backed up by their neighbors and residents that can open doors for them to at least meet some of these aspirations. And I hope you all can do that tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello.
Hello, look, Elizabeth. Welcome.
Thanks so much. You can call me Lizzie. My name is Lizzie Levenger. I'm a resident and a very proud resident, and also a member of the Parkview Mutual Aid Pod. And really just wanted to express my wholehearted support for the Park Morton Equity Plan. And really for everything that Ms. High stated earlier, and just to echo what I think a lot of my neighbors have said, you know, I feel lucky. I'm very glad to live in this neighborhood. I'm a proud resident of DC. My wife couldn't join me tonight, but she's originally from DC, has lived in DC most of her life. Our family is from DC, and we want to be able to stay here, you know, as long as we can, and that's what we want for our neighbors too. And I think the Park Morton Equity Plan is really a promising way to be able to make that possible for my neighbors who are really part of the core reason why I love living in this neighborhood. I appreciate what Commissioner Ray said earlier about sort of taking the lead from the Residents' Council and consulting with them as you move forward. And I want to make sure that that is the case going forward, and really that the Residents' Council are the ones to really, I think, take this position of leadership and to take the lead in what should be the next steps. And the equity plan, I think, is an opportunity to do just that. And as my neighbors have stated, as an aspirational document, if there are any issues with the plan, I really hope that those can be discussed with the Residents' Council and really worked out and not sort of outrightly rejected. So just wanted to really state my unequivocal, wholehearted support, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Lizzie. Okay, Kelly, we'll need to unmute you. Perfect.
Hi, my name is Kelly Collins Choi. I'm with the board of Wangari Gardens. Just wanted to give a quick update. Some time ago, we had a community visioning meeting, a workshop with the University of Maryland School of Landscape Architecture. Really appreciate the support of Commissioner Ray and District Bridges in that effort. We do have a number of wonderful designs that came out of that effort, and we are putting together a community survey to help us narrow down the designs and get some additional input from the broader community. So just wanted to put out there that that will be coming, and would appreciate any support in making sure that that gets to as many of our neighbors as possible for their input.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, look, Brian, it looks like you're next.
Good evening. Thank you. I have a different issue to raise with you guys. I wanted to talk briefly about the bike lane on Kenyon Street and the fact that it's going to displace the parking. There's a lot of seniors on Kenyon Street and 400 block and handicapped people, which I'm one of. And I would just wish that the bike lane would, I don't mind it coming, but if there would be parking put in place prior to installing the bike lanes, it would be more feasible.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. I know Commissioner Brown has a resolution related to that later on the agenda.
Yeah, and I would just like to ring in that I share your dismay with what is happening to the traffic and the parking. And I just want you to know that from my personal experiences, I don't care how much you complain to DDOT. Once they decide they're going to do something, they're going to ram it down your throat. Look at 14th Street. I begged them, because all of those apartment buildings have seniors with disabilities in them, not to remove their parking spaces so they could be near their homes. So they removed all of the parking spaces. Not only that, you can't even pull up in front of those senior buildings to load and unload passengers. So I'm just saying to you, sir, that I share your feelings. I am so thoroughly hurt and dismayed by what has happened to my community. I've lived in this city my entire 78 years. I've never seen such a mess. I think bikes should have a place, but at the expense of taxpayers who've lived in these homes. My parents lived at 433 Kenyon Street until their deaths, and it was always hard to find parking space because it was always a one-way street from the time they opened it up from Michigan Avenue. So I'm just saying to you, scream as loud as you can and to as many people as you can about the disruption. To you, contact the office for on disability and see if they can't do something to help you. It's going to take a concerted effort, but in the drive to accommodate the young people with bikes, they have completely forgotten the seniors and those people who have disabilities, those people with young children who need to be able to disembark near their homes to get out with their groceries, whatever, with their children. They've made it impossible. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I want you to know that you have a strong friend and ally to work with DDOT to consider us seniors and us people with disabilities when they're making these grandiose new streetscapes and new street plans and new crosstown modals. They never, ever consider us. And I've been on this ANC for 22 years, and I've been fighting for Park Morton all of that time, and I've been fighting for the residents of this city all of that time. And many of you do know me for my civic activities. But this is a big one, and it's going to impact the quality of life of everybody in Ward 1, ANC 1A Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Brian. Okay, going back to Mr. Dryden, if you can unmute yourself, that would be great.
Mr. Dryden, if you're at your computer and you put your cursor over your name, usually there's a mute unmute button that would appear in the corner. I don't know where he went. I tried.
Okay. Okay, then we are.
Commissioner Bonneau, maybe you'd like to speak first, Steve, just seeing the emails that had gone back and forth before.
Sure, I can try to share what Steve was hoping to present on, and then if that audio comes in, Steve, I welcome you to jump in here. Steve Dryden has been leading the Songbird Conservancy work on Rock Creek Park for a number of years, and part of that work is focused on Quincy Alley. And so this is the border between Ward 1 and Ward 4, the 1500 block of Spring Road abuts this entrance to Rock Creek Park. And Steve, along with a number of volunteers and some other projects over the years, has been focused on not only beautification of this area, but also educational programs in engaging youth to take advantage of Rock Creek Park. And so tonight, Steve wanted to present an idea around placing a picnic table and potentially, eventually, a grill area as well, close to the entrance of this field area on Quincy, where it would be well lit and close to the street side, so easy for monitoring purposes, to kind of have it there to deter a lot of illegal activity that's been taking place in the park and just make it a more welcoming space for our neighbors and families to spend time in the park. So Steve and I have been going back and forth on just ensuring that we have input and feedback from those neighbors, especially like right in the surrounding area. And so I think next month we'll have a letter of support from 4C that we could add on to, or we could decide to work on our own letter of support based on those neighbor letters. So Steve, I hope I captured the essence of what you were hoping to share. And Zach, I know you've been on those notes, if there's anything key that I missed that you'd like to add.
I just tried to unmute. Hi. Can you hear me?
He's here.
Ah, finally. Yeah, for some reason, my Zoom capability here has always been very dicey, but I'm glad I'm now on. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having me. And yes, Layla, you did a very good summation. I don't know what else I can say, but I appreciate that. And, you know, I think I've met some of you, of course. I know I've met Teresa walking in the park. Zach, I probably met somewhere. Kent, I've been to some of your meetings with you in person, I believe. So some of you are familiar with what's going on. We've been working on improving the habitat of the Piney Branch area there close to your ANC area for 7 years. And we made a lot of progress, and I'm very happy with the progress and the degree of community support. And you know, it remains, though, that there is a lot of unfortunate activity going on in the park, in the woods in particular, which we're trying to discourage. And, you know, people who are experienced with parks always say, the way you got to do it is just to make more opportunities for normal activity and get people out there using the park for what it's supposed to be used. And that sends a message. And so, as Layla was saying, we're hoping that having a picnic table and maybe a grill there to allow people to grill and to have picnics might help to change the atmosphere. I have contacted the Park Service, and they are interested in getting indications from the ANCs, both 4 and 1, with regard to this. So that's why I'm here tonight, is to talk about that. And just happy to answer any questions. Any of your experiences and ideas about this. I'm very open to this because we're still in the discussion stage. Thank you.
I guess one thing I would interject is if there's more of a plan or more details you'd like to share, maybe they could be shared at the ZPP meeting. But if you feel that you're going to get a letter of support from ANC 4C, which it sounds like you are, then I would have absolutely no reason why 1A shouldn't support it. You know, we're not the ANC of jurisdiction, but we're certainly, we recognize that people in Ward 1 residents benefit from this. And therefore, I'm interested in learning more. And I'll follow Commissioner Bonneau's lead, but I would see no reason not to support the effort.
Thank you.
All right, the phone number ending in 350.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Jula. I live on the Ray Place, and I'm also a member of the Park Morton Mutual Aid Pod. Just also wanted to call and echo my support for Ms. High's Park Morton Equity Plan. I'd like to also build off of what other folks have been saying about this being an aspirational plan and kind of just ask the commissioners at what point they think that we can continue to think about this. Folks have been displaced. The New Communities Initiative has been in the works for years. And I think, it's about time that we have some sort of definite response to all the work that Ms. High has put in to provide alternatives when really it shouldn't have been her job to do so. I appreciate, the care that you have for this community, and I would really just love to see it reflected back on definitive action with regards to the Park Morton Equity Plan. So I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you. I think Mr. Jordan. There we go. William, we can hear you, I believe.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. Of course, I'm here to talk about the Park Morton Equity Plan. One thing I do want to slightly disagree with the other supporters. While the plan is aspirational, it's also practical. And so I really wanted to make that point, So let's start with a couple of things. The only way to ensure residents' right to return is if they have an ownership stake. There's no other way. It's never happened before in the history of Hope 6 or New Communities that residents return. In fact, earlier this summer, we were talking about, still talking Bill First, but in June, 51 residents at minimum had already left the property, but we were still talking Bill First. That's nonsensical. And now since 2014, it's 70-something people out of 147 units, right? So we're not talking Bill First. It was almost never relevant in terms of the Bruce Monroe site. It has always been an opportunity to build on that property first. We just chose not to do it. And so what we're trying to do with the equity plan is to dig out of the hole and make things just, right? So we have to create a project not that meets the minimum, which is what DNPAD and DH and the steering committee is talking about minimum, We could try to have a minimum right of return. We're trying to have a minimum this, a minimum that. Well, we have to create a project where people want to come back to, where it's to their advantage to come back to. And the only way to do that is for them to have either individual, sometimes collective ownership stakes. And I appreciate Mr. Ray talking about the cooperative, but we have land on site. Why would we go outside to build a cooperative when we can build a cooperative right there on the site right now? There's no reason to do it. In fact, the reasoning for Bruce Monroe is that we didn't have to pay for the land. Why would we go off-site where the cost of the land would blow out of the water any hopes of a site that residents could afford to buy into? I mean, that doesn't even compute, right? So it has to be on the property, and eventually it has to be on Bruce Monroe. It can't be anywhere else unless you know some benevolent developer who's going to give us $10 million worth of land for free. That's not going to happen in my lifetime. The element, since we can't do Bill First, in any practical means, any building that's going to be built is a minimum 2 years away, likely 3 years away. But the housing authority is continuing to displace people, and we'll never get them back. And most people won't want to come back unless we make it worthwhile to come back. So, that's one. We talked about the Wren and RK Sunshine and others. The report that Chris Otten mentioned earlier, they actually recommend that developers buy into projects that are already under construction. So that's in the plan. That's not any great thing. Others thought of it, we just borrowed it. Everything in the plan is actually an idea that is either a program at the Housing Authority that exists, but hasn't been brought together to meet the needs of the residents. It's just kind of like, we got a program. I mean, that's what we hear at the steering committee. We got a program for home buying. We got a program for self-sufficiency. We have a program for this. We have a program for that, but it has to be designed into the program. You can't say we've set aside units for home purchase, but won't define how many units those are. How many houses are there? If I'm going to plan, if I'm a resident of Park Morton, I'm a working person, and I want to own a home, and I'm going to build my whole life around getting a home, but you won't define it, and I'm supposed to save and do all these things, and based on a paper whim from a government that has never delivered, and that's going to be my final point. DNPAD housing, and throw the council member in it too, has never delivered. They haven't delivered, this project has been going since 2014, and not one single unit of housing has been developed since 2014. Developers had $5 million. It hasn't produced one unit of housing. But I'm supposed to allow my neighbors to depend on that? No. We need to take this plan. There's no element that's outside of practical implementation. The only thing that is aspirational is we aspire to get the support we need from our community, and particularly from ANC 1A, to get it done. Because when we try to get it done, the first thing people ask is, do you have ANC support? And we have to say no. And then the door shuts immediately. At every step, we've spoken to many, many, many people about the plan. And the first question is, do you have council support? Do you have ANC support? And we have to answer, our council is wishy-washy and our ANC is wishy-washy, and they look away. So we need your support. We need it immediately. The time is ticking. The more we wait, every day the Housing Authority is removing another resident, and every resident that moves, we're unlikely to get them back. And it's just not fair, because this has been going on since 2008. And so, I'll leave it at that. So yes, it's aspirational because we're aspiring for your support, but the plan itself is practical, and most of the stuff that's been said of why we can't do it is excuses. I just will end and say, I suggest that everyone go read the history of the Wren, right? We gave that developer $27 million in subsidy to build that project. And then we get an email from the steering committee that says residents can't use their voucher there because the 2-bedroom units are priced outside of the range of a voucher, right? That means someone should go to jail. How can you build a project and then price it out of the range of a voucher, which is market rate rent? Second is that there are 130 units that are set aside as affordable units that already fit. So there's no additional financing. All they need is an agreement for people to go there. So I urge you all to, err on our side for once. Err on the side of progress, and then we'll work it out. It's not fair for the burden to be on the residents when we know they're in the midst of a project that has never worked in their favor, ever. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, William. Are there any other members of the community that have a question? This would be your time to either raise your hand or hit *9. Okay. I do not see any other questions. So we will move on to committee reports. Is there a report from the Education Committee?
Yes. So I think I mentioned at our last meeting, our last committee meeting that we held in August, we looked into drafting a letter speaking to the recent, or speaking to this most recent federal appropriations package in Congress. And after our meeting, the talks fell through, which gave us an opportunity to sort of have a conversation and draft a letter. So I put together a letter to Eleanor Holmes Norton, along with the congressional leadership, identifying the need for federal funding, specifically looking at Title I, IDEA, some homeless, making sure that we're providing some homeless services, some funding for digital divides, but also pushing for waivers that would extend the pandemic EBT and also the in-school lunch programs. There were some limitations on that were about to expire and limit where students would be able to get their meals, which, as we know, during COVID and with limits on transportation, and especially since many of our students don't attend or don't live in the neighborhood of their school, this was certainly going to be very problematic. The good news is those waivers were extended through December 30th. We haven't seen the PEBT. The really great part about this was that we did get 60 commissioners representing all 8 wards to sign on in support of this letter. So that was almost 20% of our city ANC commissioners. So that was our product from the last meeting. I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me since I had to move.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Is there a report from the Public Safety Committee? Yes,
And
Commissioner.
one question for Commissioner Miller. Do you have a next meeting already scheduled?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
And I apologize for that. It's, as everybody knows, we have started online learning for DCPS this last week. So with 2 kids in 2 different grades, it's been a little bit preoccupying. So I will set up that meeting. Anybody who is interested in participating in the committee, I do have a listserv. That's something that I have on our website, on our ANC website. You can also reach out to me directly and I'll make sure that you're added to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Moving on to the Public Safety Committee.
Commissioner Castagnon, did you want to share out, or I can start?
No, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks. So Commissioner Castagnon and myself hosted a public safety meeting last month. You heard Bob refer to this meeting earlier. So we did meet with representatives from the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and have a number of follow-up items and hoping to engage in further conversation with that office and some community members. We are meeting in September, September 24th at 7 will be our regular monthly meeting. We're still entertaining some topic and agenda items. So if community members have a need or something that's top of mind, I know we would welcome that. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonneau. Commissioner Castagnon, did you have anything to add?
Just want to reiterate that even right now, for those of you listening in or watching on Zoom, if you have any ideas for the next meeting, please feel free to enter it into the Q&A section of the Zoom below, or you can even raise your hand on the phone. I think it's *9 if you want to speak now and offer suggestions. Well, that actually might disorganize the meeting, so maybe in the Q&A or email us. But I also noticed that we have the 3D prosecutor, Anita LaRue, with us. So, you know, if those of you who have had questions for the prosecutors in our area, maybe we could invite Prosecutor LaRue to join us for our next meeting. So again, open to many suggestions. Any suggestions, please email us or write it in the Q&A box. Thank you.
Okay. Since you've noted that Ms. LaRue is with us, perhaps we should see if there's anything she wanted to speak of, or if she's just an attendee.
I was attending, but if anyone has questions offhand, by all means.
Okay. I just didn't want to go without recognizing you.
Oh, that's okay, but I know you guys have an agenda, and so I wasn't going to try to ruin your agenda. So, but if anyone has questions, I have no problem answering them, and I would love to attend your upcoming meeting. So by all means, let's make that a plan. That's great. I would do that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate having you here.
Thanks.
Okay, so moving on, Commissioner Rybarczyk, is there a Transportation Committee report?
Yeah, I just want to flag that our next meeting will be the Tuesday, September 22nd, which is the third Tuesday of the month, or fourth Tuesday of the month, I'm sorry. Last meeting, we spent a long time discussing something that Commissioner Brown has been working on, is the 400 block of Kenyon Street that was addressed before with a resident who's also on the meeting tonight. Discussed the Crosstown project a bit in wider detail, and also spent a little while discussing issues and concerns regarding the 14th Street pilot project and implementation of the DDOT Slow Streets program that you've probably seen signs up around the neighborhood as well. So if you have any interest, like has been mentioned before, please reach out, and I'm more than happy to add you to our Google group, and you can shoot me an email or give me a call, whatever's easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Unless there are questions, we'll move on to Zoning, Parks, and Planning.
Okay, so as I said before, the next meeting will be on next Tuesday. We did not have one last month as there were no cases to deal with. We have 2 cases on the roster for next Tuesday, and that's 503 Park Road and 3578 13th Street. One is a conversion of a home into 3 units, and then the other is an addition of a garage with a living unit in it. As I stated earlier, the ZPP meeting might be an opportunity for us to have a meeting that would include the Park Morton Resident Council and the development team, that if commissioners wanted to attend and get a better sense. I hear everything that everyone is saying. To answer one of the questions in the Q&A, I am the SMD for the Park Morton. And I agree with this idea that it is an aspirational plan, but there are some technical aspects of it that still need to be, not only say addressed, but that I think any resolution that we would want to put forward would not necessarily highlight or would recommend changes, just like we would with any plan that we would normally get. So I still continue to think that the best approach is to try to draft something that would be a consensus document amongst the commissioners that we can all support. We don't have something in front of us tonight to vote on, so I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner Ray. Any questions for Commissioner Rybarczyk?
Commissioner Ray, something I know that came through our inboxes I want to flag was the historic designation of All Souls.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I thank you for pointing that out. We would need to at least have discussed that, perhaps.
Yeah, and I know that's in Commissioner Clock's SMD. It's right along my border too, though.
When is the hearing on that, though? Do you remember?
When's the HPRB hearing for that?
I believe it's in October. I think there's plenty of time to address it at the next ANC meeting.
I have a question, Michael.
Sure.
So why, you were saying about the us ANC1A supporting the Park Morton Equity Plan. Your position is that we should draft something as a statement supporting the, okay. And how would that be different from us just saying we support it? We support this.
Oh, to me, and again, this is my, we all are going to have a different opinion on this, but to me, there are aspects of the plan that I can't support because at least I have been told that some elements of it are not legal, and that some elements of it are not supported by the laws that they're claiming. I mean, I'll be specific because I see in the Q&A someone asked about TOPA. I have asked about TOPA, whether or not that would apply here, and I've been told that TOPA does not apply. So I want to make sure that we are, as everyone said, that we are aspirational and that we want to achieve some big goals for the community, that we want to try to add home ownership, that we want to try to add the cooperative. And I think we should do that in our own words. We don't, the commission does not sign on to letters. We write our responses to those plans all the time. We get things from agencies all the time, and we comment on what we think works and what we think doesn't work. And so I would want to have something that's more along that line. And as I said earlier too, William Jordan sent us a lot more material. I haven't even looked at it. We got it 45 minutes before this meeting. I have no idea what it says. So I don't know how I'm supposed to vote on anything tonight.
Okay, so I understand.
Yeah.
I also support that position. There's things I agree with. There are things that are concerning to me. There are points that have been made that are out of the control of the ANC. And I'm very cautious about the types of resolutions that we pass because we do have to live with those resolutions for until they are rescinded or rewritten. And that rarely, if ever, happens. So for your information, Park Morton is not just since 2004. We've been working on Park Morton since 1990. I have personally been involved with the ANC commissioners who have lived and worked in that area. It has gone through many iterations. It has had so many promises made to it and broken. This is just one of the last group. I have a lot of concerns about the design, but we worked through those. For over 2 years, we've worked through all of the concerns. We've worked with the Park Morton committees and with their community groups. We've worked with the neighbors. This is nothing new to our ANC. We have been working on this issue for decades. So it's not something that we take lightly, and it's not something that I'm just going to rubber stamp. I'm sorry. If anybody feels that I'm offending them by saying I am not going to rubber stamp something that I have serious concerns with, some are great points, some are moot points, and some are not possible points, that is out of the ANC's realm of influence. So I'm not ready at this point to support a resolution that has not been written by or agreed upon by our commission. I haven't seen the resolution in its entirety. I've seen comments, I've seen editorials, I've seen what look like reports and attachments, but I haven't seen a cohesive resolution, something that I would be willing to say, Dottie Love Wade, I. Thank you.
And I just want to point out something. I think a lot of the points have been raised. This is there's a lot in this. And I think it's, and I do really appreciate the aspirational aspect of it. I think that there are a lot of questions that I had. And again, Mr. Jordan, I apologize because between dinner and running to log on to a meeting, I just opened it for 5 seconds. But I think you actually you answered some questions in it, some of which I had. So I really appreciate having that. But I also want to say, I think Ms. High really hits on some important conversations that we need to lift up. And I don't think they should be limited to just Park Morton. And so what I would envision as we're going through Ms. High's document, that we really take her great work and make it a broader point, because we have a lot of residents in our community and across the city that I think can really benefit from some of the issues and some of the points that Ms. High has lifted up and brought forward. And I, for one, would like to do a little bit more deep diving into this so that we can really support, those important messages. I think there's a lot to this. And I'm glad that we're going to have a meeting and that we can have this conversation. So thank you, Commissioner Ray.
So I was thinking, I was trying to get clear on, see, there's a difference between supporting. I support community-led and boots on the ground grants. I support policy and legislation, all that starting and coming from the people whose very lives are being affected. So I was thinking, what's the difference between 1A saying we support, I'm being rhetorical, we support Park Morton residents coming up with this, we support their effort in this. That's different from saying we support the plan, because you're saying there's things that are problematic, you want to look at it, you want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and say, I think we should go through, have the Park Morton Equity Plan and go through it with the Park Morton Resident Council and Steering Committee and the Commission and to your point, Michael, but there's another point, which is supporting community members in their efforts in self-determination. Those are two different issues for me. I just want to put that out there. I would be willing to support them, obviously, absolutely I would be, because I know what kind of work it takes. What Ms. High is doing is just unimaginable, that kind of work. I've done it. Luckily, it wasn't housing, but it was HCD and HFA and all of that. And so I support self-determination, absolutely. If there's, I said it. I said what I said, which is, yeah, I would be willing to support the Resident Council and Sean and the Park Morton Equity Plan, to support it as is, as they want to submit it to them. I would say this is, but I don't speak for the council, for the commission, pardon me, but that would be my position.
I do, and again, I'm seeing a few things in the Q&A, since this is still technically my time, I guess, and I apologize if we're going long. But, again, Mr. Jordan sent us more information 45 minutes ago. I've not seen it. So so Ms. High, you're not getting more we're not getting more documents that we literally are getting the documents from your team 45 minutes before the meeting. So that's probably going to take us some time to get through. Anyway, but into Commissioner Edmondson's point, I think there isn't going to be anyone on the call tonight that doesn't support the Park Morton residents in their aspirational goals of having home ownership or having homes that they can be proud of and that are safe. And we've done that from the very beginning. But right now there is a plan to build already on the table, and we have to look at that one and compare it to what they're asking for here and say, what are the parts that we can help with? And I think in the 6 points that I made earlier, there are definitely pieces that we can try to help with, but I don't think we're at a point to do that tonight, as Commissioner Love-Wade very astutely pointed out.
And I will add a little bit to that. And like a place of concern I'm coming from is, well, I'll start with, I think everybody supports the aspirational and the highest level goals. I think those are just, equitable, exactly what we should be working towards. What I'm cautious with is there was the remand to the Bruce Monroe site, and we don't know what the zoning commission is going to do with that yet. We know we have an approved planned unit development in place at the Park Morton site, which it may need to be undone to support the equity plan. What I don't want us to inadvertently do is get a lot of wind or support behind something that ultimately produces replacement housing even further in the future, where people who have been waiting for just quality housing for decades, not because it's the right, well, it is the right thing to do, but they're owed it. I don't want to deny them that housing for longer than needs to be. So to that point, I want to compare the plans to see that we're not, in a well-meaning vote, ultimately doing more harm to the community. I don't want to do harm to the community. And so that's a nuance for me that I need to know.
Okay. That would end my report on the ZPP committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ray. We will then move on to presentations. I think we have Ali Bobak from Councilmember Nadeau's office. If you could bring her up.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Hi, commissioners. It's been a great conversation tonight. Thank you for having me. Lots of updates. Missed you the last month. So on that note, my name is Ali Bobak. Just for everybody listening, I am the Constituent Services Coordinator for your Ward 1 Councilmember Nadeau. Since there isn't a chat, I'm just going to say that all of our contact information can be found on brianneknadeau.com. My direct number is 202-531-5186, and my email is abobak@dccouncil.us. So recess for the council is over, which means that we are resuming virtual hearings and roundtables. Committees have already started to begin to announce hearing dates, so be sure to visit dccouncil.us and check out the calendar for upcoming hearings. Since we're at the end of council period 23, we typically see a lot of legislation up for votes, as any legislation introduced in 2019 or 2020 that hasn't been passed by the council would need, that is not passed by the council by the end of the year would need to be reintroduced the next council period. And just based off of some of the emails that I've received from ANC commissioners, ANC 1A commissioners recently, I just wanted to highlight that Wednesday, September 16th, Councilmember Silverman is going to hold a hearing on the Department of Employment Services around the unemployment compensation program. Tomorrow, Councilmember Allen is going to be holding in his Committee of Judiciary and Public Safety a public oversight roundtable around the Board of Elections preparations for the general election. And Councilmember Bonds and her Committee of Housing and Neighborhood Revitalization on Monday is going to hold a public roundtable on tenant protection and eviction protection. So just wanted to highlight a few of those because I know we've gotten quite a few emails over the last few months around some of those issues. Speaking of the election, wanted to remind everybody that every registered voter is going to automatically receive a ballot without having to request one. So do make sure to check your registered mailing address and update it if necessary. You will be able to return the ballot by mail or by dropping it into one of the 50 secure ballot drop boxes that will be placed throughout the city. And they're going to be picking up, DC Board of Elections will pick up ballots twice a day. There also will be in-person voting centers on November 3rd. If you go to DC BOE, they have a great map where you can find, all the different voting centers, ballot boxes, etc. And there will be early voting centers starting October 27th. And of course, this was mentioned by one of the commissioners, but please make sure to fill out your census and remind your friends and family members. I know Commissioner Miller mentioned some of the work that we've been doing around DPR and with DPR and DPW. I don't actually have an update on that, but I just wanted to acknowledge that you asked me for an update, and I don't have one, but we'll obviously keep working on those issues as well as with Commissioner Brown around some of the transportation issues that you mentioned. But that is all I have for now unless you all have questions for me.
Commissioner Castagnan has a question.
Thank you. Ali, I know we've talked about this before. Tubman Field was briefly opened for a soccer tournament, I believe 2 weekends ago. And when it was open, the community was so excited. Families went to the playground. Everyone was utilizing the space. And that space became such a hub that, and it ended up actually benefiting the nearby restaurants. So after the games, everyone went to Wonderland, El Chucho. It was such a revitalizing force for our community. And now it's closed off again. So I'm wondering what is going on. When can we have it opened back up? I know originally it was closed and was not opened like all the other playgrounds and fields because there was construction going on. That construction, I believe, is now done and has been done. So I'm really anxious to just get that field open and bring back that spark of life to the community. Do you have any updates on that?
No, Commissioner, and you're reminding me that I know I had a text from you 2 Saturdays ago that was asking about that. So no, but let me first thing tomorrow follow up on that. And I think hearing what you're saying about the neighborhood revitalization piece around that, I think we can maybe try to bring some more people into that discussion and see what's going on. So definitely we'll follow up.
Thank you.
By the end of this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have a question for Allie? Then, Allie, if you could share your contact information again so that if anyone attending the meeting can connect with you for any issue they may have, that would be great.
Yes, thank you for that, Commissioner. So all of the contact information of our office can be found on brianneknadeau.com. My direct line for any constituent services or to be connected to anybody else from our office is 202-531-5186, and my email is abobak, so ABOBAK at dccouncil, one word, .us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
I do not see that Cynthia Tercios is on.
She's there.
Oh, she's there?
Yeah.
Oh, there.
Hi, I'm here.
I didn't see you. So welcome. You're on.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Can you hear me?
We could. Now you're kind of
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please share.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Cynthia Tercios. I'm the Ward 1 Outreach Specialist from the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. Oh, no. Is it my signal? We spoke about this earlier when we were on the phone.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out. You're cutting in and out.
Let me take this off. All right, I just took off my Wi-Fi. Okay, is it better now? I just cut off my Wi-Fi. It's my perfect. Okay, well, I'll start over. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cynthia Tercios. I'm with the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. I'm the Ward 1 Outreach Specialist, and I'll go ahead and share my contact information with you all. My phone number is 202-553-8032. And my email address is cynthia.turcios@dc.gov. And my role is to primarily connect residents with government agencies, help answer any questions that come up in between. And in the past few weeks, actually, I've been able to join ANCs and coordinate walks. So I'm happy, Commissioner Burnett. A lot of neighbors were happy that we did that walkthrough last week. I'm still following up with DPW about the removal of the trash cans that do not belong in the alley of the 400 block of Irving Street. And Gaia is just trying to dispose of those cans that don't belong there. So I think they're waiting for the trash truck. Sorry, I was going to say the trash can. The trash truck to come pick up those excessive cans just to clean up that alleyway. And I've already reported to DDOT the light that's behind Miss Chambers' house that's out as well. So DDOT is working on fixing that light fixture. And we also had a walk that was planned and took place 2 Thursdays ago in ANC 1A01. So the walk, you can go ahead and visit DC Twitter, and you can go ahead and view that walkthrough. So the purpose of that walkthrough was to highlight ongoing concerns on 14th Street. I'm currently in communication with DPW, DCRA, and DDOT about a lot of outstanding concerns in that area. Sorry, can you all hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Hello?
Cynthia, yeah.
Okay, so did I cut out? Okay, sorry. What was the last part you heard? I'm not sure why I keep cutting out. I'm sorry about that.
I think the last thing I heard from you, you were talking about the walkthrough and Commissioner Bonneau's SMD, and I think you were giving us a URL or a way to see photos from that event.
Perfect. Yeah. So as I was saying, you can go ahead and view that walk on the DCMOCRS Twitter account. And I am still working with DPW, DDOT, and DCRA on a lot of outstanding issues along the 14th Street corridor. Just so you all know, I know that lighting was a concern on the 3600 block of 14th Street, and DDOT was able to come out in the as they're trimming the trees in the area first to see if that helps with visibility, and if there is a need for a light afterwards, they will go ahead and take the next steps to do that. But I just wanted to go ahead and share that update with you all. I also know that a lot of neighbors have expressed concerns about missed trash collection. So if you have any questions or concerns that come up about that, please feel free to give me a call or email me as well. I'm working with GPW on that. I know that there are some delays due to the pandemic, but some areas have been missed more frequently than others. Anything that's going on in the system with, I know that there was some public space, some private space concerns in a specific alleyway, and I'm gonna go ahead and meet with neighbors tomorrow on the 1300 block of Irving Street to discuss the private and public space that was going on with the missed trash collection there, just to make sure that we're all on the same. Feel free to give me a call or an email. I want to go ahead and encourage all DC residents 20 census. During these unprecedented times, our city is in the fight for its life to be able to have equitable access on the federal level. As you all know, when the first pandemic funding came from the federal government, DC got the short of it. We didn't get as much funding as states did, and all 50 states did, because we still do not have statehood. So please go ahead and complete that census to make sure that we get all the funding that we can. Also, please continue to visit coronavirus.dc.gov to view the travel guidance as the travel guidance continues to change. The updated list is changed every 14 days roughly, and the next update is scheduled for Monday, September 24th. The latest update was placed today, and Montana, Ohio were added to DC's health list of high-risk states, while Alaska and Arizona were removed, just so you all are aware of that. Also, please be sure to please be sure to visit any public testing site across all 8 wards if you need it. So COVID-19 testing is free at all fire stations. Also visit your healthcare provider. All healthcare providers are to provide a free exam if you are considered to be high risk. And if you have any questions about testing, please feel free to let me know. Again, my contact at dc.gov, and my phone number is 202. I'm not sure if you all froze again. I can't see you all moving on the screen. Oh, wait, no, Commissioner Bass, I just saw you move.
Okay, what I can say is I think your contact information cut out a little bit, but we could share that out as well.
Thank you. That would be great. Again, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what's wrong with my signal at home. It's been in and out for the past few days.
Well, it's always good to hear from you. Thank you for coming tonight and sharing all of that.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And again, I did share a lot, so feel free to reach out if any questions come up.
Sure. Moving on, before we go in.
Sorry,
Oh,
Matt.
go ahead, Commissioner.
I just want to grab Cynthia real quick. I don't know if you can actually hear me, Cynthia. But I did want to just tag you to see if we can follow up about the trash situation. I know Allie and I were also working on this, so I'm not sure if everybody's been looped into the conversation. But I had sent an email to the director a couple of weeks ago asking for increased service, especially in our public corridors, as well as an increased recycling pickup. So I don't know if we can touch base about that in the next day or two, or if you have any response.
Yeah, I'm happy to touch base with you. I know that you're talking about miscollection.
No, you know what, Cynthia? I'm going to reach out to you tomorrow.
I would recommend you connect with Cynthia separately.
Has been having concerns.
Yeah, let me just reach out with you tomorrow.
In the Parkview area and in some parts of Columbia Heights. So I'm happy to touch base with you tomorrow if you'd like.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Freezing up again. Oh my gosh, I was muted the whole time while I was talking.
You were not muted the whole time.
Thank you.
Before we go into administrative matters,
what's going on with me and technology today.
Dom, I think we can all connect with Cynthia offline. You can remove her so she doesn't experience any embarrassment.
I noticed that Commander Griffin is on the meeting, and I know that there was a shooting incident, gunfire on the 600 block of Newton. So why don't we bring him up and Commander Griffin, are you there?
Hey, Kent, I think I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
You did unmute yourself. I usually don't see you lurking in the attendee list, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to share anything if that's why you're here, and then allow you to go back to other duties that may be demanding your time.
Okay, well, no, I just wanted to sort of make myself available for any questions that may come up in the meeting. And I will say, Ken, I can't think of a better person to have been selected for the Police Reform Commission, so congratulations.
Well, I appreciate the confidence. I think that you will find that the other 19 people are excellent, and some of them I would consider better choices than myself. So it's a good group.
All right. So really quickly, I'll go over what happened on the 7th. In the 600 block of Newton Place. There was a small gathering of people that sort of was typical to the 600 block in the past months. A car, actually it was an SUV, we believe it to be a white Dodge Durango, pulled into the 500 block. 4 occupants exited that vehicle. All 4 occupants were armed with weapons, and they laid down a high volume of rounds into the block. We had 3 individuals that suffered injuries. 2, well, the first, and all adults suffered. 1 suffered injuries to the lower extremities. Second victim suffered an injury to his gunshot wound to his back, and the third one was like a wound to the hand, the pinky finger, if I remember correctly. And the suspects jumped back into that white Dodge Durango and took off towards Park Place. And the scary part and the very discouraging part is that the sector captains and myself had put together what we sort of look at as a zone defense, understanding that there is a a feud between two factions, one in 40 around Newton Place in the Parkview neighborhood, and the other down towards the 3rd District at Lincoln Westmoreland. So in anticipation of any problems, we actually staffed the area fairly well. There was an officer that was on Georgia Avenue almost at Newton when this happened. So he was almost literally right in the block when it happened, yet still the suspects were emboldened to still crank off so many rounds. And so at this point, we're just, all of the victims are in stable condition. And so at this point, we are in the preliminary investigation phase where we're trying to piece together as many items as evidence as possible to try to determine who our assailants are and quickly bring them to justice. We normally do a decent job. Our detectives typically do a decent job in determining who our suspects are and making apprehensions and closing those sorts of cases. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do the same thing with this instance and see what happens once they are actually prosecuted.
I have one question for you, if I may, and it's simply in a situation like this where you know that there are multiple factions, as you say, to what extent do you and MPD in general, to what extent are you collaborating or working with like the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and the Violence Interrupters and all of the other, I'll say people that we're working towards finding alternative ways to get ahead of the violence? Is there a line of communication? I'm just kind of curious.
There is a line of communication. We don't work together directly, meaning the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, Collaborative Solutions, they operate in a manner in which any affiliation with the police department, these are not my words, any affiliation with the police department can possibly compromise the efforts that they are making and any gains that they're trying to make in the neighborhood. So typically our engagement is through maybe emails, through working groups, through community meetings, but we don't necessarily work hand in hand where they know our tactics and we know their tactics or what progress they're making on their end. So it's that sort of a working relationship. And the folks that we seem to work the closest with in regards to violent crime are, of course, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Office of the Attorney General if we're dealing with juveniles, the Parole and Probation Agency, which is CSOSA. And those are the ones who we sort of work really closely with, and we try to connect the dots among those groups as quickly as possible. But the other groups and the other agencies, we do have a really good affiliate in Jasmine Bernard from the mayor's office, who's excellent at getting all of the agencies on one page and focus for one goal. But it's really CSOSA and the courts who we work the closest with when we're doing these sorts of investigations. And of course, the detective office, which is part of MPD anyway.
All right. I'm not going to spend much more time with my questions other than to say I would love to sit down with you sometime, even if it's in a virtual way, and just create a flow chart of how all this works and where the collaborations are. And I'm even more interested in this now and just trying to figure out, what is the right path versus what are we doing now, and if some of the things we're doing now are right, fantastic. But I want to better understand it. Commissioner Ray, I think I saw your hand go up.
Thank you, Commander. The one thing that struck me, however, even from your description of the events, is that this is remarkably similar to something that happened not only, was it 2 months ago, 4 individuals getting out of a white vehicle, laying down a high number of rounds right there at that same location. So I have to wonder if the two weren't linked, or I almost would hope that they were, as otherwise we have multiple groups showing up at the same place doing the same thing.
Yeah, so what we suspect is that it is a direct conflict between the group from Parkview and Lincoln Westmoreland. And it has been going on for a while. It went quiet for maybe a month or so, but there were either gunshots heard or we ended up having victims over the past couple of months. But it is something that has been going on even beyond the past few months. This has been going on for the past couple of years. The feud is what I'm referring to, the actual dispute and beef between the two crews. So yes, we do suspect that it's the same groups, same essential players involved, most of whom we've already arrested multiple times. But yeah, we do believe it's the same groups.
Okay, thank you, Commander. Are there any other questions for Commander Griffin? Seeing none. Thank you for your time tonight and interest in showing up. We appreciate it, and you can bank on me following up with you. That's for sure.
Sure, anytime, Ken.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to administrative matters. Commissioner Rabarczyk, would you like to take the roll call?
Yes. So Commissioner Layla Bono. Present. Present. Commissioner Edmondson.
Present. Commissioner Edmondson, present.
Commissioner Rybarczyk here. Commissioner Goldschmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Castagnon.
Here.
1A07 is vacant. Commissioner Bass.
Here.
Commissioner Ray.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Love Wade.
Present.
And Commissioner Clock.
Present.
We have quorum.
We don't just have quorum, we have a full house. Next on the agenda, thank you, Commissioner. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Please look over the agenda as presented. On the consent agenda, there are two items: approval of the prior minutes for July 2020 and reimbursement of ANC communication expenses. Down to official business, there is approval of the ANC FY21 budget, a letter to expand RPP during rush hour in the 400 block of Kenyon, resolution requesting a hearing for B23085, which is the Street Vending Decriminalization Amendment Act, letter of support to the Deputy Mayor of Education, DCPS, DCPCS for learning hubs, and a resolution in support of the DC Surveyor application 1721094 for dedication of land for street and alley purposes. I believe that's at the Park Morton site. Please review the agenda and let me know if there's anything that needs to be amended, added, removed. Commissioner Rabarczyk, I think I see.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I did want to flag, I don't believe we're going to vote on the FY21 budget narrative. We'll save that for a later meeting. So I wanted to support removing the budget narrative from the first agenda item of official business.
All right.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that's not a requirement. It's something that I do in addition to our budget, so we don't need to vote on that.
All right.
If you want to.
Are there any other additions? I admit right now, because of the shared screen, I'm not seeing everybody. So let me try to scroll through. Okay. So I'll check quickly with Commissioner Wade and Goldschmidt since you're not visual anyway. If you're okay with the agenda as discussed.
Yes, I reviewed it.
Okay.
I love the agenda, Ken.
Okay, thanks. I love that you love the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of and budget narrative, which doesn't require our approval anyway?
So moved.
Moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The agenda is approved unanimously. Moving to the consent agenda. As I mentioned, there are two things on there. One is approval of the prior minutes for July 2020. The other is reimbursement of ANC communication expenses to Commissioner Barczyk, which is the monthly Zoom webinar license fee for September 2020. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? The consent agenda is approved. Moving on to official business. Commissioner Miller, would you like to walk us through the FY21 budget?
Sorry, I'm having I can't open it right now. Give me just a minute. There we go. All right, great. So I do want to just, yeah, I'll just walk us through. So October starts our fiscal year. Our annual allotment is $31,541. This is spread over 4 quarters. Unfortunately, as we've come to find out, it's sequential, and so any one quarter can hold up and back up those allotments. I have $11,000 budgeted for personnel. That's for our consultant admin. And once we return to our regular in-person meetings, we also have Mr. Jewell, who stays at the school. I will point out that I did not budget for Mr. Jewell for the months of October, November, or December, given that it is unlikely we'll be back in the school for October, November, and December. We don't have a meeting. So that's from January until October. We have $6,000 for our direct office costs. Communication, I budgeted in $2,000. I know in the past we've done some mailings. This is less than what we budgeted last year. We did talk about trying to put together an annual sort of mailing for the community. I don't know if that's something we want to consider again this year, but I have some money budgeted for us to discuss that. $1,000 for office supplies, equipment, printing. This is typically, well, it used to be printing was one of the primary expenses, but I personally think the $1,000 is a bit high, but it is less than what we had budgeted last year. And for grants this year, I have $3,000. Commissioner Love Wade, I know we talked about this when we discussed grants. This is what we typically give Project Give Back. For those who don't know, it's an annual program that creates, that does boxed meals, substantial boxed meals, and we provide boxes for that, and typically we get several hundred or a couple hundred meals back into our own community from that. So it's going to support, you know, the meal packages. Bank fees, $360, and most of our remaining funds I've pushed into our other. Again, what we've talked at on a couple of different meetings is shifting away from issuing grants. I will update everyone. We have had delays because of previous grants, and those have created a backup in our allotments. We did finally get cleared on our F119 Q3 third quarter. Again, it was a grant that needed that was no longer allowable, despite the fact that we'd actually given this grant out for several years in the past, both of these grants actually. So that's been cleared up. And we do have a couple other grants that we're waiting to have cleared up and moved through. So the direction that I think we've been discussing, and I think now that we have a little bit more flexibility in how, on the expenses that are allowable by the ANC, leaning and trying to go towards direct purchase. It's definitely cuts out on some of the paperwork for our community, especially those who are really just trying to do good work and may not have the capacity to fill out the grant and go through the application and then do the follow-up paperwork and get signatures. And you know, it's not terribly onerous, but it's a couple less steps that those individuals will have to go through, on top of making sure they don't have to deal with the receipts. That then falls on us, just to organize and make sure those receipts are kept and turned in. So it removes a couple steps, makes it a little easier, and hopefully it makes it easier for our paperwork moving forward. Any questions?
I don't have any. Do any other commissioners have questions regarding the proposed budget for FY21?
I'm fine with this.
Okay, then is there a motion?
I move that we accept the FY21 budget.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you. Commissioner Brown, do you want to introduce the letter to expand RPP rush hour?
Sure. This particular resolution is a resolution to eliminate rush hour parking restrictions on the 400 block of Kenyon Street Northwest. And a lot of folks may know about the protected bike lanes installations as a result of the Move DC project. This is a part of the crosstown multimodal transportation study that was developed a few years ago, I think back in 2016, but there's been ongoing community engagement, workshops, and public meetings, providing the community with some proposals and soliciting input from community members and stakeholders. And so ANC1A has passed a few resolutions, not only providing support, but recommendations on behalf of this. So as a result of the construction of the bike lanes on the 400 block of Kenyon, DDOT has also proposed providing rush hour parking restrictions on this block. And as Mr. Brian Flythe shared earlier, this block is definitely in need of preserving the parking that's currently on the block. This block is also known for speeding and traffic. It's just a speed corridor that we tend to see as folks are traveling eastbound to west, and we have really been talking to DDOT about providing some traffic calming measures around this block. And so some of the crosstown improvements will address some of that, but we also want to make sure that the residents, we don't lose any parking on this particular block. We have a lot of seniors and folks with disabilities. So I don't think that rush hour parking restrictions would really help to advance the goals that we're trying to achieve with crosstown. I think it would work against it. So I propose just eliminating the rush hour parking restrictions altogether, but also, you know, we really want to push DDOT in making sure that there's ongoing engagement as they're rolling out some of these improvements and calming measures. And I think this commission has done really good job on ways to expand parking and other types of proposals in coordination with the Crosstown study. You know, we don't want to work against it. We want to really help to enhance some of these measures and really try to explore some of the concerns of the community. So I think that this resolution addresses that, and I'm happy to take questions. I know that I've talked to the Transportation Committee about this resolution, as well as the full commission. So would love to get your support on this. I think Commissioner Ray has a question.
I'm not sure if Mr. Bass can see with everything, but it's not a question. I do want to thank you for putting this together because I know that many of the residents that live along this block have contacted me in some cases because cars flip over. They literally flip over coming down that speedway. So the hope that allowing parking, and I'm, you know, unlike Commissioner Lovewade, who is very concerned about the parking, I actually, you know, usually go the other way on this, but here it's very necessary, not only for the residents who need to park somewhere on that block, but also it'll create a bottleneck that hopefully will slow them down coming into the community, and we'll see where it goes from there. So again, just thank you for doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to reiterate Commissioner Ray's, you know, comment about the bottleneck. That, you know, this is kind of the block that starts Ward 1. So we really, you know, we know that that traffic is coming from Ward 5. So before that comes into the community, the goal is to stop it right along the hospital centers. And I apologize, Commissioner Ray. I think you were talking. I mean, I'm sorry, Commissioner Levin.
And one of the Commissioner Brown. One of the, as I indicated, I grew up on in that block. I lived on that street. And so one of the things that I have been fighting and was successful with for many years, but they've changed it now, was the timing of the light. You automatically, when you get down to Park Place and Kenyon, the light would stop you. It would hold you, and then you could go through the light, through Park, but it would stop you again at Georgia Avenue. And then it would stop you at the bottom of Sherman. That, because there was a big school there. That created the traffic calming that our neighborhood needed. But in the city and DDOT's mission to just zip traffic through, they give no regard to the people who live on those blocks and the danger that speeding traffic coming from Michigan Avenue, zipping across Park Place, zipping across Water, zipping across Georgia Avenue, and maybe stopping at Sherman. It's so dangerous to the pedestrians, to cross street traffic. That is the place to stop it. We have to insist that there is a light that stops that traffic when it's coming down Michigan Avenue. It is not fair that almost four lanes, now merged into 3 lanes, then merge into 1 lane, zipping through our neighborhood. It's just, we've got to figure a way. This is not good.
Yeah.
And it's going to get worse once they release those lights, which they've been doing.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Commissioner. This is, I think, just the start of the conversation as we see some of these, some of the construction happening around this corridor connected to the study. I was just with DDOT and Councilmember NATO's staff, Ali Bobek, just walking around that entire block radius, looking at the timing of certain lights, looking at safety along Wangari Gardens, because that also abuts this particular block. You know, we're really trying to explore as many measures to try to calm that traffic down. And so I'm really looking forward to working with the commission on this as we roll this out.
And they will inch out all the way up to 14th Street.
Okay. Last word on that. Trust me, this is the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
And our ANC commission is DDOT's dumping ground. Anything they want to do, they do it up here in our ward because we're just basically floor mats for them. Any traffic concerns, any traffic ideas, they ram them down our throats. So we got it coming and going, east and west, north and south. And just hold on to your Bronco.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Commissioner Brown?
Chairman Bass, I just want to make one teeny change, and I say this only because it caught me on both my letters. We do have a vacancy now for SMD 1A07.
Oh, you mean in the letterhead?
Just on the letter. That's it. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Brown, for this.
Thank you.
Hey, Commissioner Brown, do you also want to discuss some of your conversations with DDOT regarding community outreach that's happening and is planned?
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner Rabarchak, for that reminder. So DDOT is holding a listening session in October. I don't know the actual date for this, but it will be held by Zoom. We made those recommendations, and for any folks who don't have access to technology, you know, we're really pushing for you guys to reach out to DDOT to request for the protected bike lane plans and any other plans that DDOT has for us to review for this particular listening session. They could mail it to you. And so they intend to do some flyering, especially on the 400 block, some outreach, because they want to get feedback on how the bike lane construction is going. They want to know, you know, what the residents feel, how the residents feel about it, what they think about it. But also for the other, we really want DDOT to make sure that they inform us about the other measures that are coming along the pipeline, because it's been some time now that DDOT has, you know, provided an update on this project, and we know that they're off on their timeline. So, you know, we really need some additional community engagement prior to the construction that's happening. And I think that that's what some of the residents' concerns are, is that there's just been a lack of engagement prior to construction. So I think this listening session would address it, and this commission has been pushing for it. So we'll make sure to send that flyer out to the Transportation Committee, but also I think that that's something that can go in our newsletter.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Are there any other? Yes, Commissioner Rabarchak.
One other unrelated transportation issue. I just had a discussion with a commissioner from ANC 1C who shared, and I don't want to start a conversation, but this is for next month. DDOT released plans for the 16th Street project that we were never alerted to or informed of. And so I'll be sharing those more broadly once I have a chance. I just got them last night. But it follows what they released early on that went down the U Street. Now they've released the plans that go up the spring through our ANC. So something else that we'll need to engage with. That's all. I know.
When did they release this?
It was shared with ANC 1C back in July.
July?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
None of us have email or telephones or
situation normal. All
waiting.
Yeah, same thing that happened with the bike lane flip. Yep.
Your friends, not mine.
Hot off the heels of the 14th Street, you know?
Yes.
They say, we better not tell them. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
And to be fair, when they do tell us and we do give them feedback, I don't know that it really matters. So
I was gonna say we submitted the 3-page
smoke signals
list of.
be just as like.
Yeah, we did the work.
Why I love them so much. It is just why I love them so much.
You missed the fine print that asked that we submit our comments in semaphore. Going back to Commissioner Brown's letter to expand our PP, is there any other discussion on that, or are we ready for a motion?
Ready for a motion.
Great. Well, I move for the commission to pass this resolution, eliminating rush hour parking restrictions on the 400 block of Kenyon.
I second.
Second.
Moved, seconded, and thirded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Moving on, Commissioners Miller and Robarczyk, if you would like to introduce the Street Vending Decriminalization Amendment Act of 2020, your resolution requesting the, I imagine it's support, but it doesn't say support in the heading.
So there's not a hearing scheduled yet, so this is just asking for the hearing.
Got it.
But I think that's a good point, and I'm happy to add, and we will support it if it goes to a hearing at some point before the end of this year. I think, and I'm certainly open to suggestions, would like to provide testimony at that hearing, in addition to a formal letter of support separate. This has been a project and something I know that many of our street vendors have been working hard on. And Commissioner Robarczyk and I got involved last spring when we were invited to a listening session and conversation with many of our street vendors, the mayor's office, LAYC. And this has been an ongoing conversation. We've been really lucky to see some amazing partners, especially Many Languages, One Voice, which, once they came in, it's just been phenomenal to see the work that they're doing with the vendors. And as I've said in previous conversations about this, it's really about lifting up their voices, making sure that they're leading the conversation and determining what this permitting, what the vending, what that looks like, and what works best for them. So I want to remind the commission that in November we did pass a letter supporting Los Vendedores, specifically addressing issues with MPD. If you'll remember, there was an incident, and following that, there were many conversations. There was a vendor, a young girl, who ended up in a physical altercation. And as we've been hearing since then, this has not stopped. And one of the conversations we did hear from MPD is that at this point, it needs to be legislated away from them, because it does have a criminal enforcement component. One other aspect of that letter I just want to lift up and highlight is we also, in addition to requesting that MPD refrain from enforcing this particular permit, given that that's an outsized response in relation to what the violation is. We also asked that the council, that DCRA, that the Department of Transportation work together to create a streamlined process to help obtain street vending licenses, specifically, and again, mentioning that this needs to be language accessible, it needs to be affordable, and it needs to be culturally respectful. All of these aspects are really from conversations, again, that we had with the vendors, and really driven by them. And for those who have been following along, their advocacy has been phenomenal. And I believe that that is the reason we're here at this time, thanks to Councilmember Nadeau, who also with her staff and Ali Bobak specifically has been working really hard on this, has introduced legislation to decriminalize street vending the end of this July. That's with Councilmember Todd, Councilmember Bonds, Councilmember Choi, Councilmember Allen, and Councilmember council members Robert, White, and Grasso. So we are at the 7, I do believe, just to highlight that. This legislation amends the existing Vending Regulation Act of 2009 to remove the criminal penalties for a violation of the act or a vending regulation. So I do want to highlight that this does not waive adherence to Department of Health regulations, to DCRA regulations, or to the Department of Transportation's regulations. So there will be mechanisms in place to permit and regulation. This doesn't waive it. It just takes it away from MPD, which is where it doesn't need to be there. I also wanted to highlight that for those, and I know some of the commissioners even worked on this, but when we put together the Columbia Heights public realm framework, when we had a community-based plan for the Columbia Heights development and metro station, all of these included and carved out space for street vending. And when you look at the width of our sidewalks, when you look at the proposed use of those sidewalks, street vendors are included in that plan. And I think Commissioner Rybarczyk, you also, I believe, and I really appreciate that you added this, included our metro plazas. Excuse me. So those spaces as well, which, you know, I think would be a wonderful and vibrant opportunity. This resolution doesn't end with just the criminal decriminalization. I also wanted to, again, take the opportunity to push our council member, to push our council to continue to work with DCRA and the Department of Health and all of the applicable agencies to make sure that we're creating a streamlined process so that vendors can obtain their licenses. Again, language accessible, culturally sensitive, and in addition to that, carving out specifically some zones that can be permitted for use by street vendors. At this point, there is a moratorium in DDOT on giving those street vending permits. So we need that lifted. We need the space carved out. We need the licensing to work better. I would just add that's probably not just with street vending, but Commissioner Rybarczyk, did you want to add anything to that?
No, you said it all, so thank you.
Are there any questions for Commissioners Miller and Rybarczyk? And let me scroll through since I can't see hands. I'm not seeing any. So I would entertain a motion.
I move that ANC 1A accept the request for a hearing for Bill 230875 on Street Vending Decriminalization Amendment Act of 2020.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you. Commissioner Miller, you're still on the hot seat. Letter of support to the Deputy Mayor of Education for Learning Hubs.
Okay, great. So this was also something that was brought up in our last Education Committee meeting. And I just want to start off by thanking Commissioner Castellan, who was also wonderful in helping with input and also made some really great additions. Gave me little goose pimples, so thank you for those, Commissioner Castellan, and for your help and work on this. And also, Commissioner Castellan, for your help on the food program conversations. We are I appreciate, and I think both you and I are glad to see that we didn't have to rally up and rise up and storm Secretary Perdue's house somewhere in McLean, I'm sure. But it's also not over. It's just extended to December. So don't put away your empty lunchbox yet. We may still need to storm the castle, which it probably literally is a castle in McLean. So anyway, so this letter is addressing, for those who are not familiar, so as our children have gone to virtual learning, several communities and several opportunities have risen. Some call them pandemic pods. Over the summer, DPR, in partnership with the Department of Parks and Rec, in partnership with DC Public Libraries, had 6 sites that they opened up to students that gave them access to internet and a safe place for grades K through 5. And, you know, for many of our young people, one of the really important aspects is having an adult around, an adult who's invested in them. So they did not do these, they did not have a learning hub here in Ward 1 or in Columbia Heights, but they also didn't do learning hubs for the fall. A lot of families across our communities, especially those that serve more affluent residents, have been able to assume additional and supplemental learning opportunities for their own children, either again through these pandemic pods where they're able to bring together a small group of children, hire someone, a tutor, and you know, give them the benefit of that in-person learning and that additional intervention and interfacing that our young people really, all of our young people need. They're able to pay for tutors online. There are several, you know, online private service providers that you can pay a couple $100s. And I say a couple $100 being very facetious because that really is a chunk of change, especially when you're dealing with multiple children and trying to do more for them. So this is not an option for a lot of people in our community. And so what I'm proposing and what I'm asking for, it's being asked for across the city, in fact, is for the district to stand up programming that meets the needs for our young people. Now, whether that's in person or whether it's virtual, whether or not they're providing that online tutoring or that individualized attention that our young people need. Either way, providing opportunities that our young people wouldn't otherwise get because their families can't afford it. I've laid out a couple key points. I just want to say, Commissioner Love Wade, this has been a letter that I cut down thanks to a very kind editor who took a page out for me. So I just thought you might appreciate that. I know my letters tend to be a little long. So what the first point that we're really asking for is this whole government approach. We really need an all hands on deck solution. It needs to be creative and it really needs to involve our community. We are specifically identifying the Columbia Heights and Parkview recreation centers as places where we can provide additional programming, especially taking advantage of the surrounding outdoor spaces. And in addition to learning, also having these opportunities for internet access, for meals, and for interfacing with potential service and support services. We're asking that the city really take advantage of our strong, established, well-networked, community-based organizations and the providers for our out-of-school time activities. A lot of these pivoted very quickly at COVID when our schools were still trying to figure out how to turn the light switches on. And I can tell you, as somebody whose child benefits from these out-of-school time activities, they had individual tutoring within weeks of the school shutting down. And that's the kind of thing that we really need to bring up, and that's the thing that we really need to expand and utilize. They're already doing the work. We just need to give them more support so they can do more. I'm also asking for expanding and promoting tutoring and mentoring opportunities. Again, this is something that I've brought to this commission many times. We know the value of tutors and mentors, especially again, as we're really looking towards an achievement gap that's going to be a chasm, the learning loss right now from so many, and even those who are in the best of circumstances are struggling. So we know it's going to be hitting communities disproportionate. So one of the issues that we've struggled with as we've recruited tutors and mentors is that the existing vetting process is a little onerous. We're certainly not asking to eliminate it. We just need it to be a little bit more efficient so we can start getting this community tutoring, mentoring support in front of our kids. The last is, of course, the digital divide. We need to meet internet needs. I do want to point out that today it was announced that the city will be covering the cost of internet service. And maybe somebody has the exact number, I believe up to 25,000 families. They are starting with families on SNAP and TANF, but they're hoping to expand to our undocumented and non-SNAP TANF families as well. And this will be internet service at home, which is really key, especially as we see our public spaces closed down because of COVID. But I have left it in because I don't think that's enough, and I don't know that it's going to get everywhere. So unless anyone feels strongly about editing that out, making the letter a little shorter, I'm going to go ahead and leave it in because I don't think we're done with this conversation.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Are there any questions for Commissioner Miller?
Sorry, Commissioner Castellan, did you want to add anything to this? I know you worked a lot, especially on the research side and getting that information.
I just really hope that our government does expand these learning hubs. I mean, we have so many students at home who have no parents who can actually afford to stay home and supervise them while they're doing their distance learning. We have students in shelters who can't find a quiet space in those shelters to actually do their virtual learning. Again, we've talked about this before. We have cities throughout this country who already have hundreds of hubs up and running, fully operational with meals and support services, counselors, psychologists. And here we are begging our government to set up a few extra hubs for our students. Like, this is ridiculous. And we are one of the wealthiest districts in this country. So I'm upset, and I'm happy that you started this resolution, Commissioner Miller, and I really hope that we can get something out of this.
Yeah, and I will say, I've had conversations with the deputy mayor. I know this is something they're discussing. I have heard that they're working towards some virtual opportunities, but I think, as Commissioner Castellan highlighted, that virtual just isn't going to work for a lot of our young people and a lot of our families, especially those who don't have the choice of being able to stay home. And that is highlighted in this letter, and I really appreciate you bringing that up, because we can talk about virtual learning. This is not sustainable. Again, I just want to say, even for the best, but it's really going to disproportionately hurt so many students, and we can't keep trying to play catch up and being reactive. And right now that's where we are. So we're trying to get them to be less reactive and do what they need to do.
If I may, Commissioner Miller, I'm very happy to hear that the mayor is investing the money into the home Wi-Fi and not the MiFis, because they're so inadequate. I ship them out all the time and they're worthless.
What is that word you just used? A MiFi?
MiFi, yeah, the mobile hotspots. I'm very happy that.
Oh, a hotspot.
Yeah, I'm very happy that they decided to actually fund internet for the whole family at high speed. So I'm very happy for that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a start. I don't think it's enough, but I don't know.
Are there any other questions for Commissioner Miller?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to thank Commissioner Miller for all of her hard work on this, and I definitely support it. I just think that there are just some huge educational gaps and disparities, and I think that our city needs to do more in terms of investments during these times when quality education and access is definitely challenging during the time of COVID. So thank you so much for all of your work on this, and you have my support.
Thanks, Commissioner Shaw.
I'll second that. I thank you for all the work you put into it, Commissioner Miller, and I also am very grateful to Commissioner Castellan for all the insight and extra research that she's added to it. I think it's a good outcome, so thank you for that. Is there a motion?
So I'm sorry, did somebody else have an? So I move that we accept this letter to Deputy Mayor Kine, including, of course, Chancellor Farabee, the Executive Director for the Public Charter Schools, Dr. Walker Davis, Director for DC Public Libraries, DC Parks and Rec, and Council Member Rosso.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. Last item on the agenda is the resolution in support of the survey application. Commissioner Ray, would you like to introduce it?
Sure. This resolution affected the Park Morton, and given the conversation that we had tonight and the commitment that I've now made to come up with a resolution for the next meeting and to work with all of you to have a meeting where you can best understand all of the complexities of what we're talking about, I make a motion that we table this resolution for the future and ask for a second.
Second.
I second.
That was that. You agreeing, Commissioner Ray?
Third, yeah.
Okay. So
I second.
Commissioner Ray has moved to table this resolution. It's been seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of tabling the resolution until we've been able to have those conversations, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? It is unanimous. That brings us to the end of the agenda. So is there a motion to close the meeting?
I move that we close the meeting, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Is there a second?
Meeting in front of Dottie's house someday.
Yes.
You can look out the
Call
window.
you from across the street. You can wave at me.
I'll go to Zoom class.
All right.
You didn't see my big deck.
Thank you, Daddy. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of closing the meeting, say aye.
Good night.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That brings the September 9th meeting of ANC 1A to a close at 9:36.
Our next meeting.
Thank you so much.
When's the next meeting?
The next meeting is Wednesday, October 14th.
Okay.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night, all.
Night.
Bye.
Christine, thank you. I didn't thank you, but the work you do. You know, you guys, one thing I'll say, I tell people when they say, because I love being an ANC commissioner.